Okay, everybody, let's get started. Everybody, please take their seats. I'll call this meeting to order, and I'd a motion for approval of tonight's agenda. Moved by Mr. Forsyth, seconded by Mr. Fay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. I'd also like a motion to amend the agenda, and it was for the removal of 5D. Moved by Mr. Denisha, seconded by Mr. Reagan. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the minutes for August 24th. Rita Curran, seconded by Mr. Sheridan. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. So first of all, we have our COVID-19 update, and I'd like to welcome Nicole Terminelli and Alexa Backus. Ms. Terminelli, would you like to start, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe Alexa is going to introduce you to the mask design contest, and I will take over from there. Thank you. Go ahead, Alexa.
Good evening. So we're really excited to report to you that we received 190 mask designs last week. And so that was a great number to see. There were, some really amazing designs that were submitted to us. And I really want to say a big thank you to Colton Pierpont's art teacher, Crystal Hewer. She incorporated our initiative as part of her lesson planning, and 150 students alone from Colton Pierpont submitted designs. And so I just really want to say thank you. It was great to see the community, the county, and area teachers coming together so closely to work on this initiative. And here's Nicole to introduce our winner.
So we had a fantastic time sifting through and discussing and debating the masks that were submitted. There were 190 masks submitted in total. And after going through our youth committee, which is our youth panelists, and they had narrowed down the selection, and then we passed it on to the youth advisory board to select our final entry. And this person is joining us here this evening along with their family. So if we could give a huge round of applause and a congratulations for a beautiful design from Logan Lejam. And Logan is on with us. Logan Lejam is joined with mom Katie. Logan is an 8th grade student at Colton Pierpont. And are we able to display the mask design?
Yes.
I think so.
Would you like me to do that?
Yeah, go ahead. If you have it pulled, Alexa. It is a fantastic design. It was chosen. They really, both the committee members and the board felt that it really displayed what St. Lawrence County is about. It's just a glimpse of our nature and our scenery. So this was the mask design.
Very nice.
So congratulations,
Beautiful.
Logan, and thank you so much for your participation. Our students in St. Lawrence County should be honored to wear these masks. Do you have any words you'd like to share?
Just that I'd like to thank the art teacher, Mrs. Hewer, because she encouraged me to enter the contest. So I'd like to say thank you to her.
Thank you. That's very respectable. All
Well,
right.
congratulations.
Thank you for joining us, Lejams.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yay!
Okay, thank you. I don't know where you're going to spend that $20,000 stipend, but it's coming out of Tony's pocket, I think, right? All right, next up, we have our COVID-19 update with Dr. Dana McGuire and I believe Dr. Williams. I guess it's all Dana tonight.
Yeah, it's just me. Hi, everyone. I have a brief update. So right now we're at 322 for cases. Last week when I reported at meeting, there was 316. So we've had 6 new cases over the week, with 3 cases just over the weekend. We continue to work with K-12 schools. We just received like a new position from the state. It's called a school specialist. So we've just begun to work with her. She's going to help schools with the survey that they have to fill out on a daily basis, just answering questions, and then taking a look at that dashboard and making sure it's just in alignment with what we have as the county numbers as well. She'll also be working in the communication with school nurses. So if there's anyone who is on the quarantine process, she'll be able to let the school nurses know what the start and the end dates are of that quarantine, so that the schools know who should be at school and things like that. We do continue to work with the colleges on a weekly basis. And I would just like to say that we have just put in place a nice kind of system so that we are just aware of when students are tested, what their results are. From the cases that we're seeing around the county, it's not always the case that the local health department and the colleges kind of do have that conversation back and forth. So I feel that our processes have been quite strong. And then as a department, we are doing flu shots for the county employees next Friday. And we are doing something new this year. We're going to have like a drive-through type. So we're going to try this new kind of method just to keep everyone safe. So it's just really important to get your flu shot this year. And that's all I have for this evening.
Okay, thank you, Dana. Any questions for Dr. McGuire? Seeing none, thank you very much, Dana. That was a quick one. Next up is the Fort La Presentation Association presentation. We have Barbara O'Keefe. Right up here, Barb.
Speed away.
Oh, you're fine. Is the mic already on, Dylan? It's all set?
I'm Barbara O'Keefe, I'm president of the Fort Presentation Association. Thank you for letting me come, and I brought a friend of yours and mine and a board member, Don Hooper, come with me. And thank you for giving the Fort Presentation the opportunity to introduce our project and update others. Some of you were here in 2009 or in the area. You know about us, others don't. That's it. 2009 was the last time we were in the county budget. And we are asking the St. Lawrence County Legislature to release the $58,325 in our account for future development. And also, thank you for giving me an opportunity to get out of sweats for a change. Seems like my uniform lately. We are an all-volunteer 501c3 organization. We have no paid staff. And the mission of the Fort Presentation Association is to build a historically accurate reconstruction of Fort La Presentación and related structures in proximity to the original site and to oversee the operation of the site. Our aim is to unite the community in support of this perpetual undertaking. Our goals are to educate, to collect, to preserve, or maintain, to develop, to research, to document, to interpret, and to recreate educational and historical ventures of interest to Ogdensburg, New York, and the St. Lawrence Valley. We are not just interpreting Ogdensburg history, but also over 3,000 first people that Fort La Presentation attracted: French, British, Canadian, and American history. We are grateful for the READY grant, the Lake Ontario Resiliency and Economic Development Initiative to install shoreline stabilization and to potentially raise the trail for $1,230,250. It's the good news. The bad news is we have the 5% match is $65,000, which will use up most of our non-reserve funds. We did receive $10,000 from the St. Lawrence IDA to help with this. We are the only non-for-profit in our region to get a grant and the first to get our permitting applications in, 2 of which we have back. We were in the process of implementing some of the recommendations from our feasibility study when the opportunity to solve the flooding problem came up. In order to develop the property, the flooding issue needs to be addressed first. You can see some of this. It was so, when you just, Dylan flipped through and put, on the St. Lawrence side, it was just so hard to stand there and watch the wind just throw it over when we spent so much time on this property. And the flooding, all this is the St. Lawrence side. The flooding affected programming, Living History Day for 4th and 7th graders in 2017 and 19 had to be moved to the Lockwood Arena, and that was not ideal, but thankfully we had that. The ground was still damp on July 19th for Founders Weekend. To install the pavers that outline the fort based on the original plans at the end of July, the contractor still had to pump out just to put pavers in. For a time, the flooding cut off areas of the trail, the picnic area, viewing benches, and flooded the access road to the lighthouse. We had to take the tractor and push debris out of the access road so that you could drive through it. Here's the access road. Many of the trails were damaged. The porta potty we put up for the walkers last year. We didn't do it this year, I'm not going down and cleaning it. On the Oswegatchie side, the current, you see, was just carving out between our trees. The sandrock bar is probably a little bigger right now. So if any development is going to happen on that site, we need to take care of this issue. It's a no-brainer. That's what it looked like when they were putting the pavers in. And that's what it left behind. Thank you. You can put up the rendering, Dylan. Our architect did a rendering of the project, which I think I'm going to frame. The permitting agencies are extremely excited about the Oswegatchie stabilization project. It's a living shoreline. It's using native plants and tree root balls. That's what you call them. DEC and Department of State is hoping that it's successful, that they can use our project as a model. And some of our sportsmen will be excited that this whole idea is supposed to bring fish in. Small fish, which bring larger fish in. And then we took care of the bird lovers too. There's a wetland on the St. Lawrence side that will have low growing plants, like blueberries and stuff that will attract the birds. We're getting some extras in this because it's also about economic development. Some of the upgrades, Dylan, if you can just show those drawings quick. This will help explain that. One of the upgrades is a glass panel, and it will show the fort elevation. It's going to be lined up with the footprint of the fort. So you look through the glass panel, and you can see the back side of the fort elevation. It'll be just like the center one, except without the gates. If we did it on the front side, you'd be out in a boat to be able to look through the glass panel. So it'll be over on the St. Lawrence side. If there's funding, we'll do another one that will show one of the bastions. There's also going to be, you can go back. Oh, one more thing on here. In the center of that elevation, we're getting a banner gate. I don't know that everybody knows that the footprint is there, but there'll be a banner gate. One of our artist board members is doing the crest for that. Okay. We're doing an interpretive panel on at least the Oswegatchie side explaining what was done. There'll be some additional benches. And then if you can look at, on the St. Lawrence side, there'll be a small boardwalk that will lead to a viewing platform that will hold 24 people with a stone step that will go down to the water. There'll be another swing bench, which we have one that is very popular. We are good stewards of our 25 acres, which is on the National Register of Historic Places. It's maintained by volunteers. We allow non-for-profits to use the property. We host the Rotary Club's community garden. And our trail attracts visitors from across the US and Canada. I was amazed last year at the license plates in our parking lot. These visitors spend money in our communities. This year, we're especially proud to offer a safe recreational outlet that sees a steady flow of visitors. We have 3 events that bring reenactors from the Northeast and Canada. A few years ago, we had 50 tourists from France. They were from our founder's birthplace. And the feasibility study that we had done stated that Ogdensburg's highest months for sales tax are February and July, the 2 months that we have reenactments. The association also buys locally. Trail maintenance, I will tell you, is expensive. Including the Ready project, there is a $2 million investment at the Fort Tiller presentation site. With the association, we have been responsible for $340,000 of that. This does not include the $10 million petroleum cleanup. We were working on our strategic plan based on the Labella feasibility study when the Ready opportunity came up. The association has applied to the Rock Charitable Foundation for $50,000 of the estimated $100,000 for a French cabin and chapel architectural and engineering design plan. The cabin is to be used for interpretation and the chapel for programming. The chapel, when the fort is constructed, can be repurposed. Clarkson engineering students right now are designing a bridge to the former railroad ferry dock with its amazing views, if you can get out there. Also, in our 3-year strategic plan is the longhouse and acquisition of the adjacent fort site. As mentioned, all of these projects require matching funds if we are fortunate enough to get grants. Do you have anything to add?
The only thing I would add is just a little history for all our friends from around different parts of the county. This is important because this is the first settlement in St. Lawrence County of Europeans. So it is really the start of many of us here today. You can probably find your way back through your ancestry and trace it to that fort or one that came after.
And I've seen French reenactors kneel when they come to our site because their ancestors were there. And I invite you all to visit the site to learn about our history and environment and enjoy the scenic beauty. Now, please look at my favorite panel is on the petroleum examination and what the industrial site looked like in the 1960s. And today, as a young Canadian couple told me last year, I didn't know Ogdensburg was this beautiful. Thank you, and please respond to our request.
Does anyone have any questions for Mrs. O'Keefe or Mr. Hooper? Mr. Forsythe?
Yeah, I've got a couple. You know what the elevation is of the property?
It's on that plan somewhere. It's in your packet.
Is it?
This is the rendering.
Okay.
And I believe the
And-
elevation is there.
Okay, is the shoreline improvement gonna raise the elevation? Is that the intent of the improvement or?
The trails will be raised, a portion of the roadway will be raised. They're doing, they're an engineer here, what do you call the rocks?
Riprap.
Riffraff.
Thank you. I can never remember,
Okay.
all I can think is riprap. They'll be in there on that side. There'll be some plantings low, so it doesn't interfere with the view. There's a small wetland over there.
Okay,
We're hoping between, by raising the trail in that area that was flooded, that land is a berm too. And there'll be a step down from that platform. But I believe it has a cross section on that rendering showing you pretty much
Okay.
what.
yep,
Okay,
that's good.
anyone else?
Did you have more, Dave?
Well, I don't know, it's up to my Ogdensburg colleague, but I would bring forward a resolution tonight if you want to do it.
I would like to move that we authorize the county administrator to release the funds that have already been budgeted and have been that were established just for this purpose. I think the fact that the For the Presentation Association has worked very hard over the past 25 years to get ExxonMobil to clean up the property to the tune of $10 million. Now just needs this money in order to preserve the trail system that they had just finished building when this high water issue came up. And it will allow them to move forward on the first phase of the project. And back when the money was originally set aside, it was with the understanding that when the association was ready to move forward with the project, that this money would be there. And, it's not very often that a group of volunteers accesses, over 12 or $13 million and brings, so much into northern New York. So I would proudly make that motion.
Okay, is there a second? Second by Mr. Forsythe, Mr. Lightfoot, Mr. Fay, Mr. Denisha, Ms. Curran, Ms. Perkins, Mr. Sheridan. Any discussion about the motion? Mr. Forsythe?
I just got a little bit. Barb, I think you've been there since the beginning, if I recall. They've done a lot over the years. A lot of people said it couldn't be done. And then when they built the walking trail and water came in, and the high water just ruined everything. And in order to build that fort, you're gonna have to retain that water somehow in case it happens again, because they project it'll happen again sooner or later. So to leverage $1.2 million for $60,000 that we already had set aside, I did vote on from the RVRDA for the $10,000, knowing that we had 58 here. I'm all in favor of letting that money go. It's not, you know, we've had it all these years. I know the original discussion when Tom Nichols was beside me before Joe was that it's not until the fort's built. You can't build the fort without the wall. So I support it wholeheartedly. I support all your efforts.
Thank you.
I'd like to see it come to fruition someday.
And that Labella feasibility study told us how to get there. We need to take smaller bites out of the elephant.
All right.
And we need to have physical presence and more interpretation, which we couldn't do this year. We did do more programming last year.
Right.
And I think the only time we did get a check, Dave spoke eloquently in 2009 to get us money for, we were the last signature battle of the French and Indian War, 250th commemoration. Because the last major battle of the French and Indian War happened there, and at Fort Lee on Chimney Island.
And that Forsyth guy from across the river there, he,
Yeah.
I haven't left the off the end of his name.
Yeah, Joe hasn't been,
He's from this side.
he's from this side.
Okay,
He went over there, and that's what caused the problem.
anyone else? Kelly, do you want to repeat the motion?
I got it.
You have it. Okay, so it's basically, Mr. Burt?
Just a question. It was an excellent presentation, Barbara, but
Thank you.
I guess I just was wondering about the history of the money being set aside. I may have missed that in the literature that you sent, but I was just wondering when that was set aside and why it was set aside.
So John and Barb, if you don't mind, we'll have Ruth Doyle answer that question.
Certainly, and Barb can add to it if she would like. So I would say back as early as the 2000s, money was set aside each year as momentum was building to reconstruct the fort. And at the time, there wasn't enough money established to move forward with a capital project of that size. So the conversation took place, and also at that time, an annual appropriation was provided to the fort for the ongoing upkeep and things of that nature, and to build some of the programs they have today. And the idea being, when they were prepared to move forward with the capital project, they would come back and that would be provided to them. So it has been in a reserve since, I believe, probably about 2008. We stopped contributing to that out of the annual budget, anticipating the reconstruction of the fort. But certainly, Barb and I talked about February, maybe late January, about when the award was announced, to potentially utilize with board approval the idea that this would go towards that end. And to have that match set aside for a small organization would certainly be something worth the board considering.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yeah, my business card is in there. If anybody wants a personal tour of the trail, and we have a beautiful War of 1812 Peace Garden and the obelisk, just let me know, man. I'd love it. I'd love, or get a hold of him.
Okay.
But
So,
that's gonna take you longer, because Jim loves to talk about the history of it.
okay, all those in favor of the motion to release the 58,000 to the Fort La Présentation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay,
Thank you so much.
thank you. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Right, moving on to highway with Mr. Don Chambers. We have a resolution approving New York State Department of Transportation Supplemental Agreement Number 2 for construction inspection for Browns Bridge Road over Racket River, bin number 322-1560, pin number 775380. Moved by Ms. Curran, second by Mr. Perkins. Mr. Chambers.
Yes, this resolution is to final phase for construction. The project is currently out to bid with an bid opening scheduled for October 14th. And this is Bridge New York funds, which is 95% funded by the federal government and 5% by the county.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Chambers? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Next resolution is authorizing the chair to sign supplemental agreement number 1 with Stantec Consulting Services for engineering and design services for Browns Bridge over Racket River, bin 322-1560, pin number 775380. Moved by Ms. Curran and Mr. Perkins, seconded by Mr. Perkins. And Nicole Terminelli, I believe. Did you have your hand up, Nicole? Okay. Mr. Chambers.
Yes, this is for the change order, basically for our consulting engineer that was working on the design. When we were putting the project scope together with New York State DOT, we envisioned just a superstructure replacement, basically steel replacement and new decking. And we found that when we were doing the engineering study on the foundation, found that the pier was not strong enough to hold up the new structure. So the pier needed to be redesigned, and we'll be driving additional piling foundations at the pier to hold up the proposed structure. And also we ran into some issues with right-of-way items not being filed back in the 1970s. So we needed to clear up some right-of-way issues, which required some mapping to be done. And also needed the assistance of our county attorney to file the documents under miscellaneous documents in the clerk's office.
Okay, thank you, Don. Any questions for Mr. Chambers? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Our next resolution is authorizing the chair to sign the 2020 to 2024 municipal subcontracts for control of snow and ice on state highways. Moved by Ms. Curran, second by Mr. Perkins and Mr. Forsythe. Mr. Chambers.
Yes, usually we do a one-year contract with the state of New York for snow plowing. In fact, we did one for the 19 and 20 year. However, we now need to, the state wants us to do the next 4 years. The format is in the same format as in the past, with it being a cost plus proposal. This contract will mean about 1.6 million to the various municipalities listed in the first whereas, and approximately 800,000 on an annual basis to the Department of Highways for its operations.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Chambers concerning this resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Okay, we're gonna move on to real property with Bruce Green. Our first resolution is adoption of the equalization rates for 2021 county taxes. Moved by Mr. Lightfoot, seconded by Ms. Curran. Mr. Green.
Yes, good evening. We've got 2 resolutions tonight, and both are yearly resolutions that we bring forth to the board. The first one has to do with the equalization rates, adopting the equalization rates for the county, which affects the town and county taxes next year, and also school taxes as well. This past year, there was 3 towns that did revaluations, the town of Herman, towns of Fine and Rossi. Right now, there are 10 towns that are at 100% assessment, and last year, I believe there was 9.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Green concerning this first resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Our next resolution is authorizing the collection of omitted taxes. Moved by Mr. Denisio, second by Mr. Forsythe. Go ahead, Mr. Green.
Okay. The second yearly resolution has to do with omitted taxes, the ability for the county to collect those. Omitted taxes has to do with when a property is transferred from a person that is more or less owns the exemption to a person that doesn't, isn't allowed the exemption. This omitted tax is then assessed to the new person the next year, because they're gonna receive that exemption that first year they own it. So this allows the county to collect those omitted taxes for that next year.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Green concerning this resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Green.
Thank you.
Our next resolution is planning, and I believe we have Matilda Larson sitting in for Jason Fotenhauer. And the resolution is authorizing the chair to sign the 2020 Accelerated Transit Capital Program application. Moved by Ms. Curran, second by Mr. Perkins. Go ahead, Matilda.
Unmute.
You're muted. You sound.
Sorry, rookie. Accommodating us by allowing us to submit a resolution through Finance Committee. The reason is we just received a notice of funding availability from the New York State Department of Transportation, and it has a funding deadline of October 27th. As with last year, they have allocated funds that allow local jurisdictions that operate public transit to submit a plan for how they would spend down monies that go toward capital expenses. This can include offsetting expenses for the local match of large-scale buses, the purchase and installation of bus shelters, bus benches, GPS units, Wi-Fi systems, so on and so forth. The caveat is the investment must have a lifespan of at least 10 years.
Okay, thank you, Matilda. Any questions for Ms. Larson? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you, Matilda.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Two. Okay, vacancy review committee. Good.
There are two departments remaining of those that were reviewed by vacancy committee. Those are the county attorney and the highway department. So first up is county attorney Button.
The position that I have requested is the filling of a position that's been occupied by the same person for essentially the past 26 years. My paralegal, who started out actually, I believe, with Steve Easter, has seen Steve Easter, Bill McGinn, Andy Silver, has seen Peter Leckie, has seen Mike Crow, and now has seen me. Has decided that she wants to enjoy more of her grandchildren and life at home. The difficulty for me is that she has been the primary paralegal associated with the general foreclosure process, has been instrumental in the activities that we've been engaged in with Mr. Bowich over the years, and has been my general real property paralegal. We are obviously knee-deep in the middle of concluding the 2018 foreclosure cycle for 2020 year. We immediately start in November with the 2019 for the 2021 foreclosure year. So my hope is that if the board permits, that I can start going ahead to advertise and start doing interviews. Deb's departing at the end of November, but my hope was that if I could find the right candidate who might be willing to come in and spend a little bit of time with Deb before Deb departs, that some of that information might be relayed before Deb has to take off. So this is a critical position within our operation.
Any questions for Mr. Button? Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Next up is Mr. Chambers. We'll talk about your positions, Don.
Absolutely, thank you. Yes, the first one that I have is the highway maintenance supervisor. We recently had a resignation of one of my supervisors at the Department of Highways, and the individual took a position with a village in the county. So this leaves a large hole in the department for managing, especially during the wintertime operations. The individual traditionally was overseeing the night shift for the most part, but also oversaw the sign shop operations and also one of our 3 areas during summer operations. So as I said, this leaves a big hole within the organization and is critical to maintaining our services.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Chambers concerning this position? Mr. Barrett?
Don, is that an isolated instance of somebody leaving to go to work for the village? I mean, I had heard anecdotally that our salary structure isn't as good as the towns or many of the towns and villages. Would you care to comment on that?
Mr. Burke, that tends to be the case. We've lost a number of our last employees. The majority of them have been either going to a town or, in this case, a village. And the salary, obviously, when the individuals are going there, it's usually a couple dollars an hour at least.
Follow up, if I could.
Sure, go ahead.
Are we doing anything to assess this, to look at it? I mean, turnover is costly, and I guess I'm just wondering if we have some kind of a proactive plan to take a look at this and to address the situation.
Mr. Burke, to be honest, not as a department itself. This, I have brought this topic up when we bring forward the vacancies, that it is an issue, but I think it may need to be looked at from the entire county's perspective.
Yeah. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Don. I was thinking it was more of a broader question to everybody. If we've taken a look at this as an organization, and it's got to be problematic for you and costly to the taxpayers.
Mr. Arquette.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't disagree with Mr. Burke. However, I believe those issues are resolved at the collective bargaining table during negotiations, I would suggest.
Anyone else? Mr. Burke, in this case, I know the individual has a young child at home, and if he's working the night shift, I think it'd be nice to be working in the day so he can spend some time with his family. In this particular case. Okay, you got, moving on, Don?
Absolutely. Next one is vacancy as a heavy equipment operator. The heavy equipment operator is responsible for operating more specialized pieces of equipment such as graders, excavators, and bulldozers, and things of that nature. This, unfortunately, this vacancy was created due to a member of our team passing. As before with the supervisor, again, we are at a very critical level as far as providing services for snow and ice operations, and we're coming into that period of time. So we are basically at minimum staffing. So any vacancy left open during the snowplow season creates a definite hardship.
Okay, any questions on this position? Okay, Don, on to the next one, please.
Yes, there's another position within the department that was already approved, the sign maintenance worker. However, I have had no approved applications for the position. This is with, of course, within the sign shop. And we also have motor equipment operators that work within the sign shop. I am getting applications for motor equipment operators. And a motor equipment operator is the same pay grade as a sign maintenance worker. However, without having the opportunity to hire somebody within, very few people in the public would meet the criteria for a sign maintenance worker. Since the county basically provides all the sign work for most of the sub-municipalities and for the county itself. I think it would be better served if we went to a motor equipment operator, utilized them in that division, and did on-the-job training. So I would like to create do an abolish create of abolish the sign maintenance worker for motor equipment operator, and again at the same pay grade, no financial impact to the county, but would allow me to fill that position.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Chambers? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chambers.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So we're moving on to the county administrator's report. And our first resolution is authorizing the chair to sign a lease agreement with Cornell Cooperative Extension for office space at the Human Services Center. Moved by Mr. Forsyth, second by Ms. Curran. Ms. Doyle, Mrs. Doyle.
This resolution would provide for an additional opportunity. As many of you are aware, if not everyone, we have vacant space in the net total at the Human Services Center. And when we have like business opportunities, we provide the opportunity for rental space in the area. Cornell Cooperative Extension currently occupies space in the One Stop, some space that was returned to the county when BOCES vacated, I believe, 3 years ago. So this allows us to shrink the hole left by the space in the building, and it would provide for them 765 total square feet. Of that, they would use 575 net square feet. This would also provide, the resolution adopted last year gave them a 1 year because the funding for this program may not be certain, and this would allow them to move forward in a similar fashion, except if they do here through their nutrition education program that it will be continued, we have the option on an annual basis to extend that lease. It would be in keeping with the rates that we're charging departments, and we'd like you to consider approving another lease with Cornell Cooperative Extension.
Any questions for Mrs. Doyle on this resolution?
I believe Patrick's there if you wanted to ask him any questions either.
Okay. Patrick Ames, are you there? Would you like to make some comments?
No, I am, Kevin. Thank you. The space has worked out very well for us. We have a total of 5 employees, all nutritionists in SNAP-Ed. It's been a great marriage from a standpoint. It's put them close to the partnering departments that they work with. It's been very advantageous, and we're happy with the arrangement.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Any other questions for Mrs. Doyle or Mr. Ames on this matter? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Our next resolution is authorizing the chair to sign a contract with Drescher and Malecki LLP to prepare the annual audits for St. Lawrence County for fiscal years 2021, 2022, and 2023. Moved by Mr. Lightfoot, seconded by Mr. Sheridan and Mr. Forsyth.
So this resolution comes to you as the contract for our current auditors will expire. They have provided an invaluable service to us. They have worked with the Treasurer's Office on a number of fronts that the board has been actively involved with over their first 6 years with us. They have kept their increases to a minimum. They are looking for, I believe it's a $750 increase per year for the next 3, with the potential for 2 additional 1-year increases. While I think it's important to look at these things, I believe the service they've provided during one of the most difficult times in recent history, the recent financial history of the county, it's important that we continue the transition to new auditors, which we did undertake in 2015 to 16, was tremendous. And I believe that they've proven their worth. They've also been active members annually with the audit committee to make not advisement, but also to have conversations about how the county moves forward. They've been involved in a number of the decisions made by the Treasurer's Office that have been approved by the board. And I think certainly, given that they are willing to continue with us after what we provided to them when they arrived, we're happy to have them continue. Any questions?
Mr. Reichlatt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I normally like to see these things competitive and bring accountability to the different outfits in whatever department we're working with. But in this case, I reached out to the county treasurer, and her feedback was very favorable to this outfit. And you know, they've done a great job. They've got a good relationship with our county treasurer's office, and I'll support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arquette. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. I do think also they've done a great job for us, and I think the annual increases are very reasonable. $750. You can't get that just about anywhere, but don't tell them. So all those that are in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Our next resolution is modifying the 2020 budget for the county administrator's office to increase funds awarded to the snowmobile trail grant. Moved by Ms. Curran, second by Mr. Arquette. Mrs. Doyle.
This very modest budget modification. Rayanne couldn't join us tonight, so I did tell her I would present. $672 modification. If you recall, 2 years ago now, we moved all of the forestry accounts into the county administrator's office budget. This provides that additional amount they did receive in a redistribution of funds and provides that for them to pay out as well.
Okay, any questions or comments for Mrs. Doyle concerning this resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
Just a couple of other brief updates. Just wanted to mention to you, if this were a year without COVID, many of us would be attending NISAC today and this week. They have converted, as many others have, to the online platform to provide online training and updates on information, some of which we've participated in. If you recall, last month, I mentioned to you that the committees had met, passed resolutions so that NISAC could move forward with their resolutions and present those as a part of the legislature information that's passed along. So we'll look forward then hopefully next year to a NISAC opportunity. As for many staff, that is the training we receive on an annual basis. The 2021 budget process is wrapping up. Just wanted to remind you, as the board advised, we will schedule the jurisdictional committees to have each department head present and by Zoom and or if they prefer to be here, separated. To be able to answer any questions that you may have at committees throughout the month. And then hopefully, should the board be in agreement after modifications, move forward with adoption. Our anticipation next week at the board meeting is, as a result of resolutions reviewed last week at operations, we may see an increase in citizen participation. Many of you may have received phone calls or concerns shared about resolutions that were taken up relative to benefits for retirees. So we are looking now at a plan that would provide a safe opportunity, but also spaced appropriately for members who may like to come in and share citizen participation with you on Monday. We'll keep you informed as we come up with a plan that meets that criteria. Census completion, if you've not been noticed, has been moved from September 30th, which we were anxious about, to December 31st. So we're very happy to hear we'll have additional opportunity, and we were notified this afternoon. So certainly some of the push that's happened, I'm hopeful will continue, and our best efforts put forward to increase those percentages of reporting. So certainly grateful to have that deadline extended. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. will be the NYPA Smart Path update. We will meet at 10 a.m. at 1 Riverside Drive in Canton. That is where their field offices are located. And that tour should finish and the update by noon. I do have 5 legislators at this time planning to attend, so we can meet there, and then they'll return us there, I believe, by noon so that we can depart. I think they'll have some other vehicles arranged to take the tour. And then in light of our extended evening last Monday, I just wanted to share with you what the schedule looks like for the balance of 2020. In October, because of Columbus Day, there are only 4 Mondays, so we do have another combined meeting, and I will make my best efforts to reduce presentations, if not move those to a meeting with, or a week with only 1 meeting. But also in November, there are 5 Mondays, so we have spread them back out, so any presentations that had to wait certainly can appear on the individual evenings committee. And then also just looking for some thoughts going forward, perhaps at the board meeting we can discuss if for 2021 there's an interest. I think the board's taken a position for a number of years now where when possible, besides holiday months, in the summer we combine meetings best we can, services and operations, if the board would like for me to continue scheduling meetings in that way. Let me know or send an email with your thoughts on that. And lastly, tonight, I just want to mention that I met with our new chairman, Mr. Denisha, last week with our buildings and grounds superintendent to go over the facility management plan as he's recently taken over that committee. We reviewed the plan as it exists and looked at the 2021 ongoing repair and maintenance schedule and came up with what we'll be setting aside in capital reserve. But in terms of the priorities to be established, we're going to meet again and pull the entire committee together to go over those items. So I just want to mention, I think it was a good meeting, gave an opportunity for the new chairman to get familiar with where we are, but also I think when we pull the committee together, an opportunity to set priorities and move forward on a few things. While we're mindful of the challenges we face budgetarily, I think that this board's taken an active role in making sure that we look ahead and we try to prevent as much as possible with regards to maintenance of our facilities and be proactive in taking care of our facilities. Any questions?
Seeing none, thank you for Mr. Denisha for taking on that task. You were a little bit idle, I think. You had some slack in your schedule. So we'll move on to committee reports. We'll start out with Mr. Denisha and Cornell Cooperative Extension.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just a note on the building grounds. We're fortunate to have a someone like Dale Grant, who has established much disdain for the term deferred maintenance, as I do. Cornell Cooperative Extension, we met Tuesday, September 22nd. And Mary Lou McKnight, who is our president, wanted me to send a message along that she wanted to recognize the St. Lawrence County Board of Legislators for continued timely financial support. That is appreciated. Some bright spots. Ag Studies Academy is reopening 5 days a week with 13 students.
15.
Northwind After School is reopened at the farm. Wednesday is a full day for remote learning assistance. We're awaiting state contracts before reopening 7 additional after-school programs. Harvest Kitchen is now open for value-added processing and remote programming. And we're doing as best we can in these times. Obviously the camp, there was very little revenue generated this year by any programs.
Okay.
And our annual meeting is going to be October 22nd.
22nd?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Denisha. Next up is our Fish and Wildlife Management Board. We have Ms. Curran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So they finally provided me with an update because we've had no meeting for almost, well, a little over 6 months. Some of the work canceled due to COVID-19 was all obviously in-person team meetings. Goose banding, the spruce grouse translocation project has been tabled due to this. Any of the in-person outreach, field days, etc. Some of the notable work that they have done is they worked on the Perch River Dam, water control, and they said once it rains, they will be able to back some of the water up. They have changed the mink, muskrat, beaver trapping dates. That's available on the DEC, and I can send that around to everybody. Also, veterans and active duty military will now have 2 special days in 4 or 5 New York waterfowl zones, so they can hunt early for duck. And then the list of endangered species has kind of grown. That's available too. I'll send it around. Notably, we have increased bear nuisance. not the worst year ever, but definitely up. The cormorant birds are slightly higher. Nobody's been out of the water, obviously bothering them this year. There hasn't been a lot of traffic, so they're up. Despite COVID, they did get out to ban some of the ducks. They'll have numbers on that later. All hunter education classes in person have been canceled, and they are seeing a new appearance of the hemorrhagic deer disease, the epizootic. That's more in the Hudson Valley region than they've ever seen it.
Is that the chronic wasting disease?
Mm-hmm. And we've seen kind of an increase of moose too, and I didn't realize this, but the moose and the deer are really not supposed to be close together because they have, the moose have certain things that if they get the deer population, it creates more of that in the deer, but that's, I think, why they're seeing it. We've had a couple moose studies in St. Lawrence County. That's basically it, just they're limiting how many people can fish and how close they can fish, and they don't say exactly when we're gonna meet in person again, but they're hoping by 2021 to be able to meet in person again.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Curran. Next up is our Fisheries Advisory Board, Ms. Trumanelli.
Thank you. We have not had a meeting, but Mr. Chairman, if I may, could I just go back to the Cornell Cooperative Extension for one moment?
Certainly.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a shout out to them. I know that programming was very difficult over the summer, but they did offer their camp in a box, and our family participated, my 2 kids and my niece, and for a very nominal fee, they had the camp in the box all set to go, and I was super, super impressed. Had all of the materials that you needed for 5 days worth of crafts and activities that went along with the central theme. They had directions. I mean, they had everything that you needed all put together. There was an envelope for each day to guide you through the experiments and the projects. And I was just very, very impressed with the effort that they put forth to make sure that kiddos in St. Lawrence County could still access those thematic camps that they look forward to, even though we weren't able to get together in person. And they did offer socially distanced activities at the farm and actually offsite as well, that were in collaboration with each of the units. So I wanted to give a shout out and a thank you to them for that.
Thank you, it's nice to know. Governor Fair Board, Mr. Smithers.
They did sponsor a pumpkin festival last Saturday. It was a beautiful day. It seemed like a reasonable crowd enjoying it. Seemed well organized. I went over and walked around. Couldn't find a corn dog to buy all. They had a couple of food vendors and some craft fair booths that were very well spaced out and organized so that there wasn't a bunch of people congregating here. And they had some huge pumpkins and a pumpkin drop, which I never understood how it worked, but I do now. They have this big one. You buy golf balls and you number them. There's a 50-50 raffle, and you raise it up, and then they drop it on the one that rolls the farthest is the winner.
I wonder what that was. So, and the winning pumpkin was like 1,100 pounds, over 1,000, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. Okay, thank you, Mr. Smithers. Next up is our Highway Solid Waste Committee, Mr. Sheridan.
That committee has not met recently.
Okay, thank you. The Industrial Development Agency, Mr. Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The IDA is meeting later this week, so I have a report today.
Okay, thank you. Recreational and Trails Advisory Board, Mr. Arquette.
Thank you. Thank you. We're in our maintenance phase right now in the trail system, and Deb and her volunteers are working diligently and hoping for and to thrive this winter for a snowmobile season. As well as that, Legislator Sheridan, Legislator Perkins, myself met Thursday with County Attorney Button to discuss some interesting things that are happening around us in other counties, and hopefully you'll be hearing more about that in the form of a resolution in the near future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Arquette. Next up is St. Lawrence River Valley Redevelopment Agency, Mr. Forsythe.
Yeah, we haven't met since the last time I brought up the CDEIP grants. One of the recipients was here earlier. It wasn't 10,000 for the port, but not till next month.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Forsythe. The St. Lawrence County Chamber of Commerce, Mrs. Hagley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have an update from Brooke. Our next meeting is on October 8th, but she sent this along to me. The visitor/relocation guide will go to print this week. It also will be available as a dynamic digital flip book with the ability for the viewer to click on the links, etc., and go directly to the sites. These will be distributed via direct mail to those who requested it from the Chamber's 1-800 number or online. It will be distributed to major employers for recruitment and retention. The St. Lawrence County Trails.com is seeing a 225% increase in traffic this September versus last September. That's a total of 1,905 visits this month so far. Waterfall hikes seem to be the most popular right now, and the website is seeing a lot of traffic from the local populations, including Canton and Potsdam, where the site's been shared as a great resource to students who've been directed to enjoy in-county activities this semester. Some traffic this month is also coming from Syracuse, Albany, and Saratoga Springs. The Chamber will continue to work on improving the snowmobile trail listings with Debbie Christie, and they are working on the Adirondack Snowmobile map site to include our trails. You may have seen Brooke. She hiked Mount Arab in Piercefield for sunrise last Tuesday and did a Facebook Live video from the top. Visit St. Lawrence County, visit St. Lawrence County if you've not already seen it. As a part of the Thousand Islands Seaway region, St. Lawrence County is included in a digital campaign highlighting things to do along the Seaway this fall. The Adirondack Regional Tourism Council, which includes St. Lawrence County, has been rotating social media takeovers, and the Chamber has hosted 2 separate weeks on the Visit Adirondack Facebook and Instagram channels, driving awareness and visitation to highlights within the Blue Line in the county. Finally, the St. Lawrence County Chamber hosted the Craft Food and Wine Open Air Market. I saw Mrs. Akers had a lovely quilt there at the Power Equipment Museum in Madrid on Saturday. Nearly 2,000 people attended throughout the day. Many noted that they'd never been to the museum before, which was great for the awareness for this unique attraction. The 44 vendors at the event were all from St. Lawrence County and reported record sales for any show they had ever done. Proper protocols were in place at the event, and everyone was extremely respectful by wearing masks and hand sanitizing. Brooke says, we hope this gives a little increase to the sales tax revenue this month. Apparently, Renee Cole donated quite a bit to the sales tax at the event. She did note that. Okay, and I mentioned that our next meeting is on October 8th. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mrs. Haggard, for your report. Next up, Soil and Water, Mr. John Burke.
The state representative gave his report at the meeting and said that the farm equip payments, the equip payments made to date are $131,866. They also spoke of a program. It's certified weed-free gravel, and it's a program where they inspect the gravel and the sand in the quarry or in the pit before it's delivered to make sure that they're not transporting any invasive species. And of course, Aaron presented at our operations committee meeting talking about the Emerald Ash Borer. The Soil and Water is looking to establish some guidelines for how to handle trash along the trails in St. Lawrence County. And about the only other thing was they ordered their new truck, and that was pretty much it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barrett. Anyone else? I think that covers it. Okay. So next up, under old and new business, we have the opioid treatment program presentations, follow-up discussion. Would you like to open the comments or?
It was requested when the presentations were added to the last agenda that there be an opportunity for all the presenters to bring forward what had been submitted, and an opportunity for Community Services Board, also some have joined us this evening, to be able to have a discussion about, get questions put in and or answered for the board to be able, if they would like, to make a determination in the coming weeks. I think the opportunity to have it under old new business provides an opportunity for that to occur.
Okay.
I believe Jay is on with us as well. You can check for that.
Would anyone like to speak to the presentation? Mr. Bird.
Sorry. I thought all the presentations had their strengths, but I, again, as an advocate for the taxpayers of St. Lawrence County, when we have a program that can offset some of our deficits in delivering services, I think that we should be advocates for our taxpayers. The other thing is there is a $900,000 grant that we don't know the status of it yet, but we'll probably know within a week or two. And again, that's money that, in essence, it was a grant that was written for the county, and that money, again, in my opinion, belongs to the taxpayers of St. Lawrence County, and shouldn't be handed over to another entity. And I think, you know, as we look at the three different programs, the readiness for implementation. I mean, we all know, and I assume we all took a look at the data that was given to us as far as children who are born with addictions, and the numbers over the last couple of years. The ramifications for opioid abuse are huge, and I think as we look at how to try to stem the flow or address the problem, getting a program like the opioid treatment program fully operational as soon as possible should be a consideration on our part as we look to see who can do it best, and who should be advantaged by this. So I'm a strong advocate for the county providing the services. Certainly, the other two programs are reputable programs, and I wouldn't want to convey anything to the contrary. But the amount of preparation that the county did, and with the floor plan, with all the consultation of all the people who've been in the business, with OASIS, our state representatives, the preparation was extensive, and the reality of it is that level of preparation has not been matched by either of the other two presenters. So the people that are ready to do the job and can do it well, in my opinion, it should be the county.
Anyone else? Mr. Lightfoot?
I think there's a world of information yet to be brought forward for consideration. I think if we remember what the representative from Credo brought forward, the first, not only first year, but first years were a very unsteady year for that organization as they were going forward. They needed time to build their client base. They needed time to level out the imbalance they had in their staff remaining on the job during that first year. And security, from my understanding, was an important part of this that really hasn't been fully discussed or brought forward in my estimation. I also question whether or not after the $900,000, if it is still available, is used up in sponsoring this OTP, if it is brought on board, what do we do after that? Do we really believe that we will be able to garner enough revenue to make this a freestanding endeavor on the part of the county? Or will it be more like other endeavors that we've been involved in, that one of which we ultimately had to shut down because of the cost to the taxpayer? So I think that there, even though we may be looking at a time limit with respect to this grant, that we have a lot more work to do to decide, first off, whether we even want to or need to have an opioid treatment program in St. Lawrence County. I think that we have an obligation to take a look and see with some accurate means, how many people potentially would this take to generate the necessary revenue just to break even? That would be a great accomplishment on our part if we could put together a program that just broke even, not cost the taxpayer anything. And I'm as much in favor of a savings on the part of our taxpayers as anybody on this board. So I think that there's a lot left to be learned. I was impressed by 2 out of the 3 presenters last week. And I think that if we can pull together some more information about maintaining a steady flow, number one, making sure that we are providing or have the staff and the wherewithal to provide the best possible service that we can. But I think we need to know, is there really a need out there right now that is not being met for the people of St. Lawrence County? So I would like to see us continue moving ahead on this, gathering information, bringing it out, talking about it, but not making a decision right now, right tonight, about whether we should even have that program or not. Thank you.
Ms. Curran?
Hi, is Jay there? Can I ask a question of Jay?
Is Jane Smith, are you there on our Zoom call?
No, Jay Ulrich.
Oh, Jay Ulrich. Jay, can you come on board?
I am.
Hi. So my understanding, Jay, is that until we know whether or not the grant is available, we really don't know who has to make this decision. My understanding is that if there is no grant, that the board does not have to be the people who make this decision. In the absence of a grant to be dispersed, and therefore we would have oversight over it, in the absence of that grant, this decision could be made, say, by the Community Services Board. Am I wrong about that?
That's my understanding, yes.
So, well, we're collecting information, and I've reached out to a couple of my friends that do different types of chemical dependency work around the state. Some of them actually do the net program, they work there, or one does one now, and we're gonna collect some more information, but we may very well find then, Jay, that we're not the people to make this final decision.
Mr. Arquette.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Legislator Lightfoot in saying that revenue neutral is certainly our goal, nothing worse and only better. Of the three presentations that we saw last Monday, you know, I felt that the county's presentation was the best presentation. I like their location. And I believe that their startup cost, you know, beyond the grant was significantly cheaper than the other two. Thank you.
Mrs. Haggard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is kind of elementary, and that is, I don't understand why St. Joe's and the St. Lawrence Health System would be interested in the program if it were a loser or there wasn't a need for it. So I guess when we look at whether the need is out there or that it could be profitable over how many years it takes, what their interest would be in proposing it if it weren't something that they would benefit from as well. I guess I'm just putting that question out there. It seems to me that their interest has to be somewhat altruistic, but possibly something that they could make money on. And I would agree with Mr. Arquette that I thought the St. Lawrence County's proposal was the most viable. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering if we might ask Jay, you know, this preparation for this went back, my understanding, well over a year ago, and the feasibility has been very much researched by Jay and Shana, and I'm wondering if we could just ask them to talk about projections for revenue. It's, I mean, both the two entities who gave a budget, St. Lawrence Health System and St. Lawrence County, we're off a little bit, but the revenue projections on both were pretty significant. And I'm wondering if Jay, if you wouldn't mind talking about, you know, how did you come up with those revenue projections? How reliable are they? And so that maybe we could get at least a little bit of the uneasiness or uncertainty answered tonight.
Well, I don't have the budget in front of me, but I think we anticipated approximately a startup of about 30 clients. And that would be increasing incrementally throughout the first year, with a small profit the first year. We used, you know, fairly modest projections, and we used the APG OTP calculator provided to us by Oasis. So, you know, you really punch what you anticipate the numbers to be. And of course, you know, the frequency, at least pre-COVID, was daily dosing, at least for the first 90 days until you could assess someone's stability. So, you know, we used that calculator with the APG rates because predominantly a lot of the individuals would likely either have Medicaid or Medicaid managed care. And likewise, for the second year, I think we went up to approximately 100 clients with potential profit of up to $500,000 approximately.
Anything else, Mr. Burt?
No, I had known that Jay and Shayna had done extensive preparation, and I just thought that, and I'm guessing St. Lawrence Health System probably did a fairly extensive preparation when they did their budget, which showed a significant profit. So again, I don't disagree with Joe, making sure that we know what the ramifications of a decision would be. But on the other hand, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that the presentation that St. Lawrence County did was extremely well researched. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Ms. Curran?
Hi, just quickly. I can tell you that the methadone dispensing rate is $207 per week. Every time the person is there and this is Medicaid rates, $35.28 per week for the actual administration. So that's like, say $210, $245 per week. So if you take 30 people times 245 times 52 weeks of the year, it's 380,000 billable for 30 people. I don't know how much it's gonna cost to have the building and do things and pay for the heat, lights and whatever, but it seems like it's lean. That's why a lot of these programs get a bunch of bailouts. When you talk to some of the people, that's what they talk about. Larger programs do better because it seems to be when they're talking, a couple hundred people is what it takes to keep the lights on. I'm not sure that we have that. If I may sort of speak to Margaret's question, there are a certain amount of people that live in St. Lawrence County that travel to either Clinton County or Jefferson County right now to get their methadone. How many of those will come back to here and need to be treated? We don't have a true number. I do Suboxone treatment, not for any of the people who been on this project. But what I'm seeing right now for a trend is people that get on methadone have problems with going through the daily dosing, gain a lot of weight during the treatment, and then are moving back to Suboxone. So I'm not sure that the shift is headed towards methadone in treatment right now, even though there are some people that at least try it because they have, daily counts or every 7-day count for their Suboxone. I think that addiction is horrible, and I would give you anything if I could figure out a quick way to solve this. I just don't know that methadone is really the answer in this county. And part of my family was affected this week with an overdose death. So, for years we worked with my cousin to try to figure out what to do with her, and it just didn't go well. So I'm all in for trying to find a way. I don't think this is feasible for the size of clientele we have.
John, you have your hand up? I can't tell.
I
you.
do.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I do. Well, here's what I would say, Rita. The first issue on the budget, that's been all delineated, and we know exactly what it's going to cost for the lights, the heat, the renovation, because it's the same building that we're in right now. It's the exact same building, and there's been a great amount of work with Mr. McGinn, the landlord. So the costs in the budget are very well delineated. The efficacy of methadone treatment after 7 or 8 years is like 80%. It's an amazing intervention for people who need that. And so it's very well researched. And here's the other big thing. You don't have to take my word for it. This is OASIS is the one. OASIS, our state agency for alcohol and substance abuse, is the one that pursued St. Lawrence County to start up the program. So there is a solid base of support and knowledge, far beyond mine and in my opinion, beyond anybody else on our board. There's a base of knowledge that's saying this is needed, this is important, this can change lives, and I think that you know, at some point we have to recognize that the experts in the field should be listened to.
Anyone else? Okay, so I'm going to make some final comments and then we'll move on to our legal discussion. I agree with John on his last point, you know, the 80% efficacy in changing people's lives. And that for me, the whole idea of going about this is actually finding the best care, the best provider. So in my opinion, I felt that St. Lawrence Health Systems would be the best provider because of the wraparound services that they have. They've got in detox over 600 people a year they treat, rehab 255 yearly. They have an intensive outpatient that they have 953 people in. And the outpatient, the OASIS outpatient is 475. They also have, we were talking about the number of children that were born addicted this year, and it was really astounding. I don't know, was it around 20? I think this year 21 so far. It's really shocking. So they actually have a program there for pregnant moms for treating addiction, and the capacity is 12 to 30. I didn't think that our county site, although I think it would be the most, as far as dollars and expenditures, as far as retrofitting it to serve in that capacity, what I didn't like, it was in the same building as DMV and probation. The other thing that kind of surprised me about the county system was they spent a lot of time talking about their Narcan prevention program, which is valid and very worthwhile. But I wasn't sure how that was connected with the OTB as far as the proposal itself. But for me, it's about who can actually provide the best care. And I felt that an individual, I mean, usually when somebody is addicted, they have other problems also, whether it's a mental or physical or whatever. And I thought that an individual could come into the St. Lawrence Health Systems, and with all the programs that they had in place, that an assessment could be made as to what program would best fit that individual. And for me, that was the strongest point. And that's the thing that I'm banking on. I'm not, I am concerned about the revenue part of it, but for me, it's who can provide the best care. And that's why I've been pushing for a methadone clinic in St. Lawrence County. It's one in Plattsburgh, one in Watertown. We know that individuals are going to New York City for treatment. So that's where we're at. So we'll think it over, all of us, and look through your notes and think about it. So let's move on to the next part of our discussion is the DSS legal review follow-up. Ruth, would you like to start, please?
Sure. I think Cindy is also present this evening. Provided you with a brief summary of the overview of what the recommendations were after looking at both the concerns raised in the department and reasonable solutions considering the challenges that they face. I can, as a follow-up, identify that their full complement of attorneys has been achieved with the fourth attorney starting and completing the orientation process. And while we know there will be some time before that attorney is completely up to speed, at least there are another set of hands. There is someone else capable of practicing in the office. Also, after meeting with Cynthia and talking about the or scenario that I provided with regard to either adding an attorney as a recommendation for the board to consider, or in lieu of our normal processes, the vacancy review committee, or to contract out the work that I indicated with appeals. There are currently 22 pending. She indicated the interest would be in adding the additional staff member. That, as I mentioned also in the last part of the recommendation, was a net county cost of approximately $20,868, with expectations that would increase with the normal cost of increases as well as benefits. So that has been, at least in our discussions, the interest in the direction with regard to that option. Third option was the support matters. From my understanding, there is not an interest in the department to pursue the county attorney's office with support matters. I have not had time to determine the reasons exactly for that. But also the fourth recommendation, providing access for the bands, similar to a practice that we utilize in the district attorney's office, whereby there are 8 bands in the unrepresented salary group. What happens in that, as I mentioned previously, there is an opportunity with training and experience and human resources oversight and recommendation, the opportunity to go from the bottom of 4 to the top of 5. The placement of the assistant or the social services attorneys had been in band 4, but determined by training and experience, they would also potentially have access to that 5th band. So those were an opportunity Cindy and I had to discuss. The recommendations, certainly welcome questions, and if I don't have them for you, I can certainly get them and share with the board.
So would we like to ask Cynthia for comments?
Sure.
So Mrs. Ackerman, would you like to add comments?
Well, I think the only comment that I would like to add is that first, it's really nice to finally be fully staffed. I spoke with David this morning, and he is very excited about the new attorneys that we have on board. He stated that they were top notch. He feels very lucky to have them. They're both very eager to get going. And I believe with the experience that they bring to the table, that they will be getting started sooner than later. With speaking to Ruth about the potential contracting out for the appeals attorney, I had spoken to 2 commissioners who currently do contract out for their appeals. They're both basically right now renegotiating their contracts. They believe that there's several reasons why they may not continue those contracts. One would be that when they, when you contract out for the appeals, you aren't in control any longer of the process. Your cases are put on hold, and you're basically at their mercy to get those cases done. The appeals cases can be costly. Sometimes they can be lengthy, which increases that cost even more. So both of, at least the 2 commissioners I've spoken to, one was from Ulster County, the other one was from Columbia County. Both stated that basically the only good reason to contract out to an attorney would be to basically have an attorney on hold should you need someone for a conflict of interest or something to that nature. So in discussion with Ruth was, could we potentially, hire another attorney for appeals? Once we get those appeals down to, bring the numbers down, then that attorney can also, backfill into some of the other spots right now that are, high number, and then, switch back over to appeals when they continue to come in, or should they continue to come in.
Okay, did the counties, the people that you talked to, did they mention anything about cost savings by contracting it out versus having someone on staff? Did they do a comparison for you?
One of the attorneys told me he basically spends $100,000 plus a year contracting out, and he doesn't have anywhere near the appeals that we have. I don't have those exact numbers, but his number was 100,000 plus.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's open up for questions. Mr. Burt?
Yeah, I was just wondering, when you contract out, is that portion state aidable? I mean, is it reimbursed Or is that just money that's, like when we hire a new attorney, I think, I don't know whether it's 71 or 81% reimbursement by the state. And I guess I'm just wondering, and you may not know this, but I was wondering if any contracting out is also reimbursed.
Our expectation, Mr. Burke, is that it would be at least claimable. Where it fits relative to the percentage associated with personnel is another matter. I think we don't have those contracts in place now, but I do believe we could claim part of that.
Yeah, and it is 81% for our internal
staff
attorneys.
Could
Correct.
a follow-up if I could?
Certainly, John.
I guess the other part of that, Cindy, is that it sounds like it's an open checkbook when you're contracting out. You have no way of controlling cost or maybe even predicting cost.
Correct. And when speaking to the commissioner from Ulster County, that was his exact comment. He said it is very unpredictable. And again, there were different times where the time frame for whatever case was running, was running out. They were running out of time. There were times where they had to, go back and, reschedule. So he's basically said you're at their mercy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone have any further questions? Mr. Lightfoot.
Cindy, what do you see as the benefit of farming out appeals as opposed to having an attorney on staff that can do the work? Is it a matter of competency? Is there any, do the counties that you spoke with, do they experience a savings? Have they all signed on, the ones that you talked to, have they all signed on to farming it out? Or is there a mix where some, may hire and keep it within?
These were Ulster County and Columbia County were the only two counties in New York State that actually contract out for appeals. I reached out to, her name's Sheila, but she kind of she doesn't oversee commissioners, but she runs the committee for commissioners. She's had sent me a list of, it was a pretty interesting spreadsheet of how each county, how they have their org charts for their legal, and basically which commissioners are completely inside for attorneys for DSS, which attorney or which DSSs may have internal attorneys versus, they might contract with the county attorney. They may also contract out for appeals or support. There was all spreadsheet for everybody. So I went on that spreadsheet and I called the only two attorneys or the only two Department of Social Services that I could see who actually at this time did contract out for appeals, spoke to both of them, and they initially had contracted out just because they had gotten behind in appeals and they figured that it would be good to contract out just to get those cases taken care of. Both found it to be extremely costly and both recommended that to keep them in-house. I find our legal team to be very competent. I don't think it would be anything to do with levels of competency whatsoever. The only reason why we were basically looking into it at this time was just due to, having 22 basically, which is now 24 outstanding appeals, and to see how we could best get those numbers down.
Go ahead, Joe.
Many of the counties that you spoke to operate beneath the mantle of the county attorney and identify the attorneys that work there as assistant county attorneys?
Yes, there's several counties that do that. I don't have my list in front of me, but I can definitely get you guys that information. I had put together some information for Ruth a while ago, just to kind of give her a snapshot of an array of the different of the different ways that the Department of Social Services did typically an org chart, and who, you know, based on small counties, medium counties, large counties, and extra large counties, of which St. Lawrence is considered a large county. So I did some basic data on how those large counties did set up their legal units.
And I can speak to that. I have it in front of me. The counties, all submitted by Cindy, have county attorney involvement. Jefferson County being the only large county, which St. Lawrence County is also in the large county category as far as social services are concerned. They have one county attorney, 3 senior assistant county attorneys, another assistant county attorney, and social services attorneys beyond that. The other counties shared by Cindy were medium and small counties. They also, in turn, had county attorney involvement and limited numbers of social services attorneys included. Out of the large counties with primarily DSS oversight, there is 1 in the large county category, 5 in 15 medium counties, and 3 in 16 small counties. So as we've talked about before, I believe it roughly, I think it was 34 counties, if I remember correctly, where there were about half that do county attorney office oversight and about half that have DSS controlling. So it really, I think, becomes a county determination on the interest of who provides the oversight.
If I may.
Ken?
Could you provide the board with those, the names of those counties?
Sure.
And the
Happy to.
information so that if any of us want to do some checking and investigating on our own, we can do that?
Happy to.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions before we conclude? John Burt?
I do have a further question. The decision as to what to do, I mean, as to how to handle the legal, is that your decision or is it the board's decision? I was under the belief that the operation of the Department of Social Services is like it's similar to maybe the treasurer's office, in which, you know, you answer to the commissioner, New York State commissioner. But I guess I'm just wondering, you know, as I think about who should be making the decision about legal services, you know, if there's a problem, you know, my guess is people will hold you accountable, you know, and along with accountability, you need the authority to do what you feel is best. And just being able to point the finger at another entity if something goes wrong isn't what we should aspire to do. And I guess I'm wondering, if I were in your shoes, it would seem like you need and you would want the ability to make those decisions to best run the Department of Social Services. Am I wrong on that, or?
No, and if you look at our numbers right now, you know, our numbers right now are extremely high, and it's not the fault of, you know, the attorneys that we have at this time. There's, you know, quite a few factors involved. You know, you had, you know, the whole COVID incident, and it, you know, and it still continues. You know, the courts were closed down. You know, there was just, everything kind of was getting backed up. And then we were down, of course, positions in our legal unit. And I think at this time it's trying to figure out the best way to staff our current situation. You know, we don't want to overstaff either, because we want to bring our numbers down. We want, you know, to get everything and bring things back to how they were a little over a year ago. So how do we do that? You know, how do we get the supports in there, bring those numbers down, but continue to provide support to that unit so that we can keep going on an even flow, so that we can better support, you know, in the end, the children in the courtroom for better results, so that we are more prepared and, you know, we're bringing the best that we have to the table. So, you know, when looking at that right now, our shortfalls are basically our appeals, which would take an attorney, and support. Support alone is a full-time job for an attorney, and that could even be an entry-level attorney. An attorney has to be present. So that's another, side where, what kind of person is best to put into that position for a support attorney? Is it a long-term staff? I just don't think that's the best thing to do for what you're paying for. And I do think it would give a new, entry-level attorney great experience moving forward to maybe move into another position, that we may have down the road. Sometimes things are ever evolving, people kind of move on. So, I've talked to Ruth too about, types of, succession planning or, growing people, so to speak, within our legal unit, which is very fast-paced. It's not a typical, attorney's office. It's very fast-paced. It's forever changing. Things can change on a dime, depending on what the judge wants to do that day. And I think bringing people in that can work that fast pace and get used to our department and find it, challenging is the type of people that we need to bring in and keep. So it's looking at those numbers and seeing which way we can best support that unit to keep them flowing and moving forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So I think that concludes our discussion on the DSS legal. So we have a need for executive session, all 4 categories, Ruth?
Yes, sir.
So entertain Mr. Forsythe, second by Mr. Fay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. We're going into executive.
Give us just a moment to go off of the online YouTube.